be a long weekend. We need to. We're, yeah, these two just came out of their shell, so. Yeah, so the update from the bears that were here from the last workshop. So, um, so what I'd like to do is just through the meditation, maybe I'll talk a little bit first, and then we'll have it. That way, you can really just have a silent experience or a silenter experience. What I want to feel is two pairs of things. One is that what gets released from me, whether that's um, a tenderness, like a soreness, or a tension, or a frustration, or a physical tightness, um, or a worry, or a prejudice, or whatever is kind of caught up in me, and I am connected to the earth, and the earth can receive everything. Right? Like gravity tells us that everything will arrive at the earth. Right? Everything here will. So no matter how long you balance it up on something or bolt it or tensely hold it somewhere, it's going to end up on the earth. And so it isn't really a practice of how do I ground? How do I connect? Let me follow these procedures and do it in this fashion. The point is that you are. You can't not be. Otherwise, we'd all be astronauts. We're not. We're just down here. Right? So remembering that whatever gets softened, whatever gets released, whatever might fall away will find its way to the earth. I do not have um, to throw something in order for it to get to the ground. You just have to let go, right? Very few things are helium balloons. So I don't even have to know that there's a ground or which way is up, right? If I just have to let go, and I'll find which way is down. So it's very easy to do this and have your consciousness say down and earth and there, and then also this way, right? Because I read this thing and there's a way to ground, and sure, there's plenty of ways to ground, but also just as long as you can just unbolt it, loosen it, tip it, it'll find its way. So the letting go doesn't even have to start by going down, like through your butt or your tailbone or your thighs or knees or ankles, or right. Like if I was to spit up, right, the thing that left me went that way, but it's going to go down. So it doesn't even matter the direction it leaves. Like it could leave this way, right? It can fall off my elbow, right? So again, when we say we want to release and let go and soften and allow things to find their way to a groundedness, to a ground state, I still don't have to think down or here or definitely through my butt. That's the part touching the ground. It might go that way. I just need to let go. I don't need to direct it. I don't need to throw it. And I don't need to worry if it kind of goes sideways. It's still going to go down once it's free of me and my grippy, grappy, graspiness. Right? So the work is to release. I said two pairs of things. The other part of this pair is receive. And for our purposes in the meditation, we're going to be receiving from the sky, or the out there and the up there. You could say the sun, if you like, or the stars. You don't have to worry if it's actually nighttime. The sun's still there. And just like we see everything on Earth, it all came from the sun, right? Everything is fed by the sun, powered by the sun. Sometimes in a sort of Kevin Bacon way, like the sun feeds that, feeds that, feeds that, and then that's me, right? And sometimes it's directly like that fern, chlorophyll. I get it, pretty simple. But the idea is that the receiving is from the sky. And the sky is yang, the earth is yin, so that's our pair. We have our giving, we have our receiving. But again, I don't have to, when you breathe, you don't have to say, well, this atmosphere is mostly above me. I just am ready to breathe and I breathe. I don't know exactly where that oxygen came from, like probably some mix, right? But I don't have to know that it comes from, I just breathe. So even though we're aware of that, I'm not looking up and praying up and begging up and expecting up or directing, the portal to the up so I can receive. I'm just here. I'm just sat here. The sun will find its way to you and maybe through things to you. My work is to release and receive. And when I release, things find their way down. When I receive, I find that they came from above for the purposes of this meditation. Pretty simple idea. So this is my tea. If it's pretty full here, good reminder to have some. I've been out here for like 2 hours. I didn't have a sip. So if I was to pour this tea out, and it's essentially full here, and all of the tea comes out, right? And so you're not getting stressed. Pretend I'm over a sink or something. What has happened to the cup? Fair, right? It's full of tea, and then I pour all the tea, and all the tea leaves the cup, and now the cup is full of air. Wait, you said empty. So that's really just tells me what you value, right? The tea, not the air. So emptying the tea doesn't empty the cup. It empties the cup of tea, if we want to, that's fair. The cup receives air. So this is, I'm not going to do it, but this is me filling the cup with air. Pretty much one of the few ways to do it. I could try it with a straw maybe, but so when I release, and that's the primary practice here, when I release, that could be exactly how the receiving happens. There's room now for that. Right? There's lower pressure as I release, so something new can come in. It could be that that's higher pressure enough that it kind of finds its way in, and that's how I release, like somebody knocking something out of my hand instead of me just doing this. It could be that I release, and then in its own time, in its own way, something is there to receive. I don't have to name what I release, and I don't have to name what I receive. That's where people can trip up on this meditation. You can, but I'd prefer you think you don't have to. Because if let's imagine like I have a bunch of tension in the shoulder and I kind of finally actually sort of like let it go. You could say, well, you released that AC joint and that pec minor and that ligament or whatever, right? And I'd say, yeah, but mostly it was kind of releasing that argument I had with my sister that, like the physical thing I did was this ligament and this shoulder and this muscle, sure, but like what actually fell away was this unresolved frustration I had with my sister, right? But maybe I don't know that. I just literally feel my shoulder relax. So I don't have to know it was my sister. I don't have to like put all the pieces together and label everything. I can just say, oh, yeah, okay, something has released. And perhaps that allows me to receive, or perhaps I receive and that allows me to release, right? Questions? That's one pair of the two pairs. Two is that when I release, things can find their way up, maybe permanently. So, unlike when I said I spit, that'll definitely go down. We're thinking of something that's substantial, solid, material, matter, weighable. Maybe I'm releasing something that's psychologic or emotional or intellectual or spiritual. I mean, I don't know enough about all that stuff, so I don't know where it goes, but I can imagine it might not just go down here like dropping, a coaster. And I don't have to direct it, I don't have to make that happen. But when I release, like if you're on the space station, when you release something, it's kind of like an equal chance of going every direction. Yeah, so fun. So fun. Like if you're one of the people that lights a candle like this, you're probably not going to sit on a rocket with 400 tons of stuff. If you kind of go like this when you light a candle, you might not have what it takes to like strap into a rocket, you know. Um, and then you probably know the other half of this pair then. When I receive, the receiving doesn't necessarily come from the sun or the sky. Maybe I'm receiving support. Maybe I'm receiving connection. Maybe I'm receiving stillness. Maybe I'm receiving warmth. Maybe I'm receiving um, chi from the earth. Maybe not. And maybe I don't feel that and need to know it. But the practice won't be okay, part two, right? Or I don't have to direct myself. And yet, the directions will probably happen, right? So, so I think of this as xylem and phloem practice. So if you're into botany, that's why I call it that. So we're just going to be sitting. That's it. Our only work is to release and receive, which maybe that's not even work. It's more like an awareness because it's not an intention. It's not like, hey, throw me that, or can I have it when you're done? It's not that kind of receive. Um, so is receive kind of subtler or softer or not really sure? So it might just be more an awareness of it or uh, a sensory fuller experience of it when you receive. Maybe you receive support, connection, warmth, stillness, energy, trust. I don't know. And again, you don't have to name the things. You can just be like, oh, that's good. You don't have to write a book on it, so you don't have to have the names. Okay? And then, so I'll kind of chime us in and we'll sit for a few minutes. And if, when we're done, if you're enlightened, you can leave early. Yeah. It's not a switch. It's just, I was necessarily had to describe them one before the other. But I went with the natural order first. But You might perceive part of it and not the other part. You might perceive the yin half of each of the pairs. You might perceive one pair kind of fine, but the other you lost. You might go from one pair to the doesn't really matter. The point isn't to get it all and do it all because there's very little doing. Your work is just to release and where you can receive. The reason I say that is that we know that the release is something that's available to you. Um, so when we release, we want to release everything but our intention, our posture, maybe our gesture. So I'm not going to be like a puddle when I'm done because I released so much. But everything that isn't required to sit here comfortably and well is among the things that can be released. Okay? So breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. You guys want to try this too?